The shots that I remember came from across the other side of the creek, which was down the hill from the swimming pool. And there was this creek, and they were on the other side of the creek firing as you hear the bullet whizzing over our heads, you know.
Chief of police was standing there. I asked him, did he hear these bullets? He said, no, he didn't hear anything. I told him, well, that was good. But I was glad to know that he didn't hear very well, because when we started shooting, he wouldn't hear it either.
We were coming up 601, and we reached the top of the hill at I think it was a Hilltop Cafe or something. This car comes out into the road and hits us, you know. And I think they were waiting for us because there was a lot of people there.
The police were there, supposedly directing traffic and ignoring the fact that the mob was closing in on Rob's car with the teenagers. And Rob saw that the police was not going to intervene to help them. And so he stepped out of the car and asked one of the teenagers in the back to pass him his rifle.
When they saw that we were armed, the crowd kind of, you know, held up. And then that's when the police got involved, because they were there all the time and saw what was going on, but they never moved until they saw we had weapons. And they wanted to come and take our weapons away. And Rob said, no, I ain't going to give up my gun unless they give up theirs.
And I put the rifle in his face, so we're not going to surrender to any mob. Then there was an old man out there that started crying. The man just crying like a child, like a baby. He said, what is this country coming to? Said, the damn niggas got guns, and the police can't even arrest them.
And so that's where he got the title, Negroes with Guns.
Phone calls that would come throughout the night, oftentimes, where people would call and they would make threats. But they were pretty consistent as we increased our civil rights activities. And then things got to the point where threats were being made, that people were threatening to bomb the house. There were times when people would come by the house and shoot guns.
You have to understand that in the years between, say, 1957 and 1961 in Monroe, there were Klan rallies with as many as 15,000 people in attendance. And it was dangerous. They were constantly under attack. And the Klan was large and violent, and it killed other people.
By 1961, the aggressive approach to local rights problems had brought violence to Monroe. And Williams and his followers had strayed farther away from the main line of Negro thinking. These incidents awakened the concern of moderate whites and Negroes alike. The Ku Klux Klan and other segregationist groups began taking a greater interest in the Monroe situation, too. In line with his policy of armed self-defense, Williams organized Negro gun clubs. The town of Monroe was becoming a potential powder keg, an incident waiting to happen.
A railroad slices through Monroe. It's not one town but two towns. On the right, Monroe is white, and on the left is Newtown. 18 Freedom Riders came in August '61 at the call of young Rob Williams to see what could be done.
We could use the help. So that's when James Foreman and Paul Brooks came into the community to help us to protest. And I think it was Foreman who said that the King forces wanted to prove nonviolence as was successful over violence.
Only thing I knew, you know, they said the Freedom Riders coming. They said Rob was getting the Freedom Riders to come. And then, you know, the next thing I know, you know, the guys was coming in from New York and places, Washington, D.C. and places. And a lot of those guys, they were going to Harvard and Yale doing research on hunger strike.
Well, there was also an English girl who had come, English student who had written me a letter and said she was visiting the United States and she had never been to the South, and she heard that we had demonstrations going and she would like to visit us there, and if I would allow her to come, she would come there and help us work with it and whatever she could do.
He was the first person I had ever met who could talk about great values and splendid ideas and about justice and liberty and sound genuine and sound convincing and not just be somebody, you know, putting on an act.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me.
They didn't really know what they were facing in Monroe. They'd never been through a southern town before. And some of their manners were atrocious.
Now, I remember they would tell us, like, say, if you can't take it, don't go up there. Because he said, this is a non-violent. Like people come there spitting on you, kicking you, and pushing you, and all this kind of stuff, you know. You know, because he said, like, if you go up there, this is probably what's going to happen. If you can't take it, don't go. One of the freedom riders was walking in front of me, and this little white girl walks up to him and said, are you a nigger lover? He said, yes, I am. She spit in his face.
Of course, the real hot button is white women and black men.
The pavements opposite, on the other side of the road, were clearly packed with people. There were certainly people shouting every kind of abuse. They were standing there watching and clearly weren't going away. They didn't just happen to be passing. We'll get you nigger, and nigger lovers was the favorite thing.
They picketed for a week. Well, the time was coming up for the weekend, and I wasn't participating in the demonstrations at all because I wasn't going to take any pledge for nonviolence. And so I asked them if they were going to rest on Saturday and Sunday, and they said no.
Some of the northern protesters came to our church, which was Central Methodist, which was right uptown, and demanded to be seated. Of course, we seated them. And I think that they didn't like being seated as near the front as they were, but nobody tried to hinder them.
We weren't warmly welcomed, but we weren't hostilely received. I think they behaved quite correctly. We were seated, we were given these little forms. If you're interested in the church in future, please fill in. We came back, and I think we had something to eat, and then we went into town to picket.
Thousands of Klansmen, Minutemen, and other fascist and racist poured into the city. And they had said that they were going to crush this demonstration and that they were going to destroy our branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And most of all, they were going to kill me. Then I told the guard that it looked like we were going to have a battle that night.
You have to understand, these people are separate from Robert Williams in some ways. He's supporting them, he's helping them with some housing, he's willing to help them, but they're really not his people. The situation downtown is so dangerous that that people who were working with Robert Williams went downtown to rescue them.